mute, it's because I don't want to subject you to her screaming.
She looks so calm. She's beautiful. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I said that out loud. I'm sorry. I take it back, Finley. I take it back.
I just got a notification on Zoom that we're being live streamed. So I think that is a good sign. Yes. Did you all get that as well?
Yes.
I got that. It's progress. Now I'm just waiting for YouTube to update so that I can actually hit the go live button.
It says it's live on YouTube now.
Usually I have, they've changed things on us. I will double check the YouTube feed to see if it's actually live.
I just paused it on my end, like, so we couldn't hear me, but I can see it here live.
Okay. Let me double check that it's actually streaming on YouTube. Usually I have to push a button.
I think it's available to see on YouTube. Okay. Javi, if you're talking to us, you're on mute.
Sorry, I didn't want to cause feedback, so I muted myself. So it says that we're live on YouTube, but I'm not. Let me see.
Not to invoke the chat, but someone did say they can see it live on YouTube.
I've also pulled it up by searching, and it's live.
Thank you so much, Chad. I will stop worrying about it and we can finally call the meeting to order then. This is my first time doing this. I will struggle with it. I apologize in advance. Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry, do we have a Spanish interpreter?
We should probably also have the transcript, or is that on?
I just tried to enable it. Kristen, did it come up to you to approve?
I'm seeing a notification that it's been enabled. Principal Zamy, do we have a Spanish translator?
We're supposed to. I'm trying to see if they're on here. I can't tell.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can't. I don't see somebody on here right now.
We miss one meeting in August and we forget how to do this. I'm gonna blame this on the new chair.
She said that Letty's waiting. Kristen, do you have other people waiting to get let into the meeting?
Oh, there's no one else here. Let me try to.
Do you resend her the link, Principals Amy? Maybe she's in a different meeting.
I apologize, everyone. For anyone who just joined, we're trying to sort out the Spanish translation for the meeting.
Were we waiting for someone named Letitia?
Yes,
Okay, she has joined.
Yeah, I just entered her, or I just added her.
Kristen, I just remembered that we said we would have chat off until public participation. Is that something you can turn off?
Let me look here. I might have to do it individually. Because I can't do it from just opening chat.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. I'm sorry.
There should be an option in security features.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That was helpful. I found it.
Thank you, Claire.
It was April.
Oh. Thank you, April. Our family Zoom expert is currently hosting a webinar for the Eastern Hemisphere.
So interpretation's ready to go. The chat is off. We are live streaming and recording.
Okay, thank you. I think we can officially get started then. Apologies for the late start, as we remember how to do this. Please take a moment to update your name in Zoom and your role in the community. Welcome to the Pierce Llc meeting. The members of the Llc are the elected representatives of our school, the Llc responsible for setting the school's direction and policies and for monitoring its financial and educational programs. All participants are muted, and we will invite you to unmute during public participation. We have 2 opportunities for public participation. Each opportunity will be 10 minutes. Zoom pre-registration serves as an intent to comment form. Members of the public wishing to comment must pre-register via Zoom under their own name for the safety of our community. Every participant may comment for up to 2 minutes per opportunity. The chat will be enabled during public participation. If there are private conversations you prefer not to share with the Llc, I would advise that you use personal devices for those conversations, as the host receives a full chat log of all Zoom participant chat conversations at the conclusion of this meeting. The meeting is being live streamed to YouTube. For those not wishing to pre-register, you may watch via YouTube or are watching via YouTube. You may email your comments to piercellc@gmail.com. Should there be any disruptions during the course of the meeting manager, Ms. Munoz, will use Zoom to mute and turn off the cameras of all participants while the disruptive attendee is removed. If we are unable to remove a disruptive participant, we will close the meeting and a new meeting link will be emailed out to all attendees. If you do not receive a new link within 5 minutes, please email piercellc@gmail.com, where a new link will be shared with you. During the meeting, the Llc members will be unable to monitor comments in the chat while discussing school business. However, parent volunteer April Browning has kindly agreed to monitor chat and the live stream of our meeting. We ask that you save your questions for the public participation portion of the meeting, at which time we will ask you to type stack in the chat so that we can invite you to speak in the order indicated. Please not use Zoom to private message members of the Llc during the meeting, as doing so is a distraction and disrupts the meeting while we discuss school business. At the conclusion of the meeting, Ms. Amy will receive the video recording of the meeting, which will be posted to the Llc Google Drive on the Pierce website. While the chat is not an official part of the meeting, it is a necessary community building tool for Pierce folks to connect with each other. Chat is the way for attendees to see each other virtually and participate together. As the audience, we rely on attendees subscribing to the IB profile in their interactions, especially being inquirers, knowledgeable, principled, open-minded, caring, balanced, and reflective. These are the norms for using the chat. With that all out of the way, I will call the meeting to order at 6:28 p.m. Can I get Aisha, can you help me out here? What's the proper method for calling the roll?
You can ask the secretary to run through the list of council members, or I think what we've done in the past is just said Aisha Noble.
Okay.
We've just run through given our names.
All right, let's go. Let's do that. All Llc members, please.
Jerry Baumgarten, teacher rep here.
Evan Trad, teacher rep.
Bill Kennedy,
Sandra
parent rep.
Kafarkas.
Oh, sorry, Sandra. Go
That's
ahead.
okay. Sandra Kafarkas, non-teacher rep.
Bill Kennedy, parent rep.
Claire
Aisha,
Tracy, parent rep.
Aisha Noble, parent rep.
Elisa Wartic, community rep.
Javier C. Wright, parent rep. Is that everyone? Oh. Sorry, Trey, you're muted.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Tremaine Mabry, parent rep. Sorry, couldn't unmute.
And Lori's Amy principal. I had the same issue as you, Trey.
I'm not sure that I asked. I heard Matthew. Yeah, he's also muted. Can he be added as a, well, that's technical difficulties abound.
Matthew Kwame, parent rep. Hi, everyone.
Hey, Matthew. That will end the roll. Seems like we're all here. And we have a quorum present. The next item on the agenda is approval of the order of the agenda. Do we have any discussion on the order of the agenda? Seeing none, would someone like to make a motion?
Move for approval. Second.
All those in favor of approving the order of the agenda?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstaining? Not voting? Order of the agenda is approved unanimously. The next item on the agenda is the Student Council report. Principal Zamy, is there a member of the Student Council here?
Student council has not yet been formed.
Your audio was breaking up a little bit, but I got that the Student Council has not been formed yet. In that case, we will move on to the next item on the agenda, items needing council approval. The first item, sub-item on that is the minutes of the regular meeting on May 22nd, 2021. And I will go ahead and say that I was reviewing the minutes once again before the meeting started, and I have one amendment. I copied the minutes from a different document. So I have that the principal called the meeting to order, and that should be corrected to the chair called the meeting to order. So any other discussion on the minutes of May 27th? Seeing none, I will have any objection to one motion amending and then approving the minutes as amended. Seeing no objection, I have a motion to amend the minutes to reflect that the chair, not the principal, called the meeting to order. And I would like to approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstaining, not voting? Motion passes. The next sub-item is minutes of the organizational meeting on July 12th, 2021. Is there any discussion on the minutes for July 12th? Seeing no sentiment for discussion, is there anyone, will someone provide me a motion?
Move to accept.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes of the organizational meeting on July 12th, 2021? All those opposed? Abstaining? Not voting? Motion passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is the principal's report. Principal Zamy, how much time would you like?
Feel free to cut me off at any point. I honestly don't know how long these reports usually take, maybe 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes.
Okay, let's start with 15 and then I'll let you know when if you get dangerously close.
Sounds good. Well, welcome back. It's been extremely busy start this year. It's been a meeting to have students back in.
Principal Zamy, you're breaking up a little bit. Is anyone else hearing that? Is it the distance to the mic or the internet connection?
My computer probably needs to restart.
Oh.
It's really bad?
It comes in and out. Right now, it's really good.
Okay, how about right now?
It's better.
Okay, I'll try to project my voice a little bit more.
Thank you so
Let
much.
me know if it is not well.
Thank you.
So welcome back again. The school year has been very busy. It's been great to have students and staff back in our school buildings. Some of the things that we have that are number one priority.
Sorry, it's not, it keeps cutting out. I don't know
Okay,
what the
I
solution
think I'm
would
gonna
be.
have to restart my computer then. Too much going on.
I wonder, Miss Amy, if you turn off your camera, if that would
How is
do
that?
anything?
Is that better? I'll try and then we'll see how it goes. So number one priority this school year is that we keep students and staff.
No, we might have to restart, Principals Amy.
All right.
Sorry.
Yep.
Is Mercury in retrograde?
There's a website for that.
Not technically for another couple days, but yes, we're in the shadow.
That question came up 3 times at work today, so I feel like maybe it's a little early.
I love that that's a question that comes up in the workplace in 2021, you know, as somebody who was raised by hippies and like astrology was a normal thing to talk about in our household and nowhere else. Just like part of the parlance now is great.
Just looking for meaning somewhere, you know.
While we're waiting, I just would like to say that I have a hard stop at 8 o'clock. I'm sorry about that. I'm currently out of town doing student teaching for my Montessori training and also have other grad school things that I have to attend to. So I'm sorry that I'll have to leave at 8 o'clock.
Is the sound any better on this one? Okay, I just switched to my laptop. I apologize. Okay. So as I was trying to say, our number one priority this year is keeping students and staff safe while they are in the school building. And part of those efforts include continuing our work with the safety committee. This is a group of teachers, administrators, and support staff that meet currently on a weekly basis to review and address any issues that we see with school cleanliness and implementation of COVID protocols. The other thing that just kicked off last Friday was COVID testing. Shannon Gimicello, who's our resident principal, is leading our efforts with COVID testing. There were not enough testers sent to the school Monday. Monday is the day that we started. There were not enough testers sent to the school so that all 250 people who indicated interest in testing could be tested. And so we have, informed the district that a 2-hour window with one tester on site will not be sufficient to test all of our students. And so they are aware of that, and they're working on deploying additional people to our school so that we can implement the weekly testing protocol. We also utilize the care room during the school day for any students who are having COVID-like symptoms. They're able to go to the care room, be assessed, and either sent home or back to the classroom, depending on the symptoms that they are demonstrating. And we are utilizing the quarantine process. We had to temporarily flip one classroom to remote last week. We were able to actually bring that group of students back after being out for 2 days because there ended up not being a positive COVID case that had been in close contact with the students in that classroom. Contact tracing is in place. There have been, a lot of messaging district-wide around the lack of turnaround time among the contact tracing, unit to schools, to school communities and to families. And that is something that the district is currently working on to expand the contact tracing team. And then we also are implementing the outdoor lunch as possible. So when it's raining or when the weather turns very cold, we will have to resume eating indoors, with windows cracked open. And we are exploring alternative options, but we don't have a lot of flexibility or room to implement a lot of techniques, just because things like having exterior heaters and tarps are not allowed per the facilities department. But one thing that we are doing is utilizing classrooms versus the lunchroom as much as possible in those instances to avoid multiple students not part of the same classroom eating together. Some updates from school year 22 are the Bryn Mawr side of the building had the concrete replaced and ADA approved, accessible, I should say, over the summer. And then last week, the Gregory side of the building began the replacement as well. For the first time in 3 years, we were able to open the branch location for 4 preschool classrooms at 5300 North Broadway. And we were able, we can accommodate up to 160 students. We are continuing to accept students. We are not completely at capacity at the branch, but even today we had another student enroll, and we will continue to accept students as we go. We were unable to accommodate all families at the main building who have a child at the main building. So we do have some families who have children at both the offsite location as well at the main building. But there just was not enough space at the main building for everyone to be prioritized. But what I was able to do is create a flexible plan where families can drop off early and pick up a little bit late at either the main location or at the branch. There have been changes to our assessment policy as a district. The district is no longer utilizing the NWEA MAP test for 3rd through 8th grade students. We have switched over to the use of STAR 360 for reading and math for 3rd through 8th grade students. And we are utilizing a new multi-tiered systems of support platform called Branching Minds, where we can track the progress of students and the interventions that they are receiving. And then in K2 math, we are currently waiting on the district for approval within their new online approval system. It's called SOPA, which basically we've historically used Ames Web for math, and it's currently a pending platform. And then we are exploring bringing down the STAR 360 platform into K2 for math. So we have not yet begun the screening process for K2 math, K2 literacy. We are continuing with the TRC and DIBELS tests, which we have used in years past. We have after school programming that will begin middle of October. Ms. Thompson is our after school program coordinator. She has been surveying staff on their interest in running programs, and she will continue she will work on sending out the registration forms for students to sign up for the free school-based program. We continue to have the YMCA partner with the school to run a fee-based program. And then we've also had to run a temporary school-based program because the YMCA did not have the capacity to bring in all students to their program for the start of the school year. So that I was able to pull that program together to accommodate all families that needed an aftercare option. And that program began the second week of school. As the YMCA is able to accept more students, we will phase out the school program and all students will end up participating with the YMCA. We also have 2 dance residents through Relay. They take coursework at Loyola, and Relay is the teacher residency program through Chicago Public Schools. And so the goal is that those 2 dance residents would become certified teachers so that next year they could either teach dance or they could teach, a general content area at a school that has a vacancy. Our enrollment is currently down. I think this is something that families have heard throughout the city. Our budget this past school year was based off of 993 students. The current enrollment is 929 students. So we are down a total of 64 students. And this is just looking at K-8. So if you look at our enrollment with pre-K, we're at, I think, 1,057 or so. But pre-K is not included in our budgeting formula because we receive separate funding for preschool. So while we're down 64 students, I also saw that we had 67 students that were out of district transfers. So we've seen quite a few students moving to the suburbs, moving out of state, moving into private school. And we have had a handful of students transfer to other Chicago public schools, but the vast majority of our movement has been through out of state and private and suburban and private school transfers. Shannon Gimicello is also leading our attendance and re-engagement work. She was able to make sure that all students that had not reported to school had been contacted and that we were able to identify where were they. And so we were able to get several students back into school who had not showed up for that first day. And there was a lot of work done over the summer to contact families, but we can say that 100% of the students that were with us last year, we know what happened to them and we know what pathway they're on for this school year. Our attendance naturally is lower than what we would expect for beginning of the year. And a lot of that is due to students quarantining. It's due to an increase of us having to implement 6 student protocols, where if a student is demonstrating some type of COVID-like symptom, they have to be sent home and can only return if they have a negative COVID test or if they have approval, a sign off of the doctor of an alternative diagnosis. So Shannon will be monitoring this data and engaging in outreach with students and families to identify where are these issues not related to illness and where are they related to a bigger issue that we then need to create a plan of support around. And then on this slide, I wanted to share what our numbers were when we're looking at students with IEPs and students who are enrolled in the English Language Learner Program. Part of our work with special education and supporting students in the least restrictive environment, I wanted to highlight that we've made significant improvements in supporting students in the general ed setting alongside of their general education peers. So what this data shows is back in school year 16, 74% of our students with an IEP were supported in LRE1. LRE1 is where their day is spent in the general ed classroom, working alongside the general ed and special education teacher. And over the last 7 years, we've seen a gradual increase in the percentage of students shifting into 91%. That's unusually high for schools to have 91% of their students with IEPs serviced in the general ed setting. But I think that speaks to our work around inclusion and our work at creating differentiated learning plans for our students. We are also continuing to partner with the GUST Foundation to support our work with inclusive practices. A few staffing updates. If the LSE will recall, it was either January or February of this year, one of our part-time security staff members had transferred to a different school, and that left a vacancy. And I advocated to the district to allocate a full-time security position. And it was from January until August. It took, 8 months, but at the end of August, I did find out that we were allocated one additional full-time security position. And Adolfo Ramirez, who has been supporting our work as a miscellaneous support staff member, has been staffed in that position as our full-time security staff member. We are continuing to work with human resources to staff some additional miscellaneous staff members. Those are generally people who are supporting our lunch coverage, maybe additional classroom support, some of our after-school programs. So we have 5 staff members that are going through the process of getting staffed. It's just human resources and staff are just taking a little bit longer to clear that process. I also learned earlier this week that I have one of our special education classroom assistants whose last day will be tomorrow. And so I am also in the process of staffing that position. Some of our work around family engagement has included our back to school virtual sessions that we held as a school the week prior to school starting, both classroom and school-wide sessions around the health protocols that will be put in place in September. We hosted a virtual open house. Tomorrow morning is our restorative practices information session. And then earlier this week, we had the new family orientation and IB session. Families really want to be able to come back into the building. And I've heard that, quite frequently. Because of the size of our school right now, we're trying to play it safe. We're very close to having a vaccine available for children under the age of 12. I think once that vaccine becomes more widespread, it will be a lot safer to have these larger community events on campus. We are looking at ways that we can potentially bring in families, especially of the lower grades, pre-K, K1, where those families really have not been in the school. We are trying to explore ways that we can bring those families in so that they can see the building in a physical form, not a virtual form. One of the things that the LSC and I have been looking at over the last couple of years is the demographics of our staff. And you will see that our numbers from last school year to this school year are slightly flat in terms of shifts in racial demographics of staff hires. And part of that is that we did not have a huge increase in staff. As you'll recall, last year, we had quite a few staff members whose positions were closed or who accepted positions out of district. And so there have not been a lot of new hires that have been brought into the school. And then this document will show we've also been looking at not just the staff members, but when you look at the demographics of our teachers compared to our support staff.
I'm sorry, Principal Zamy, you're at time right now. Would you like, how much more time would you like?
I'm almost done. I can just highlight a couple things from our professional development week.
How about, can I give you 5 more minutes? Just
Yeah.
so, okay.
Sure.
So
Thank you.
5 more minutes.
So our opening week of professional development, we held a staff picnic. One of the things that we knew we needed to focus on was creating unity amongst our staff, especially, returning off of, a year and a half and a lot of contentiousness that had happened with the return to school in particular. And staff very much appreciated having that opportunity to, just be in fellowship with each other. And we've continued our work with curriculum development, redeveloping our IB units of study. We have a deadline of December and we're making pretty good progress. And we've been supporting teachers with STAR 360, supports for English language learners, and then some policy work as it relates to our IB evaluation process. And then again, through our grade level team meetings is another form of professional development. Teams meet on a weekly basis with school leadership to discuss, areas of focus that are aligned to our CLWP, but also that are aligned to district mandates that we have to implement. And so these are some of the things that we've also been focusing on within our grade level team meetings. So there is some overlap between professional development and grade level teams. Myself and members of the school leadership team have been visiting classrooms. Our behavioral health team continues to meet, and we have a good number of students. I don't have the exact number right now, but we have talked about a way to share disaggregated data with the LSC. But our behavioral health team is running, and we do have supports for students in place, along with our multi-tiered systems of support team. Sam Lee led a new teacher orientation, and then we are also engaging in one-on-one check-ins with new staff to the school. And this slide lists some upcoming dates for members of the community to get involved with. So that is my principal's report.
Thank you, Principal Zamy. And before we move on to LSC discussion, I do have to apologize to John Espetia, who I see has called and dialed in. There are a couple of users who tried to get into the meeting using your name, but they have been removed. I apologize that someone has done that to you. That having been said, is there sentiment for discussion on the principal's report?
Did you say that people tried to dial in with my name?
No, not your name, John Espetias.
Oh, sorry.
I see that he has dialed in using his phone number, but a couple of other people have tried to enter the meeting using his name. And so I have removed those people from the meeting.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Principal Zamy?
This is Trey. I just had two questions. One is, assuming that there's not enough testers, how are you determining which students will get tested?
I'll ask Shannon to actually answer that question since she's leading our COVID testing.
So as this was our first time doing this, I began, so we are going to, within the first few rounds, we're going to work through our younger age children, those who are not able to be vaccinated. So I was able to get a majority of the kindergarten and first graders tested on Monday. And then I have a spreadsheet and I have been highlighting as soon as they get tested. So the next available day that they send healthcare providers, I will move second grade on up and with staff as well. But we have, again, as Ms. Zamy stated, requested additional healthcare providers and timeframes.
And just a follow-up question to that, how's the notification process working? So once a child gets tested, are the parents notified as well as the school, or how does that?
So when you signed your child up through the Color Health portal, you have access to that portal and you can check it. I believe it's a 48-hour turnaround because they are actually sent off to a site and tested. They are not rapid tests. So I would let you know. So the child actually, they had a little red postcard, the ones who did. I do know that they are kindergarten and first graders. So if those made it home or not, I will look into discussing with the admin team if there's any other notification that we might need to have with parents in order to let them know that they can go check the portal. So I will check into that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Shannon, I'm wondering, nice to meet you, by the way. I'm wondering, of the 250 folks being tested, how many of that is student versus staff?
We did break it down. I don't have it pulled up, but I would say as a general percentage, it's about 85-15 student heavy. So, you know, it is a majority of the students that are being tested. However, that was our number on Monday, and it is a rolling sign up. So when I go to pull the numbers again next Monday in preparation for the healthcare workers to come, it has a possibility of increasing as well, since we have a very large population.
I had a question about enrollments, and that we're down by 60 something students in enrollment, and then there's like another 60 something who have left the district. So is that what I'm understanding? There's over 100 students total that we're down by?
No, we're down 64 students. But I'm thinking that of the two that have left, 67 students gone.
Lori, I'm not able to understand you. My internet's a little unstable. I don't know if it's me or if it's.
I hear the same.
Yep.
I'm sorry. It sounds like I am incorrect, that it's not over 100.
Okay, so then that means that there's something wrong with my desktop with the audio.
There you go. Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, I was trying to get back on that one. So we're 64 students down from 2 years ago, which is what they based our budget off of. We have accepted students in, from the lottery, and we have lost 67 students to out of the district. So our net is that we are down 64 students.
Okay. And do we know what grade levels are being affected by that? Like, do we have a grade breakdown and like racial demographic breakdown of that?
We have a grade breakdown. So third grade right now has very low enrollment. Eighth grade right now has very low enrollment. But we've lost students throughout the school building. So it's not any one grade level in particular. I had shared the numbers per grade level. So basically wherever you see anything less than 112, that's where we generally are looking at as places of concern. So like right now, our third grade numbers, I believe, are 88. So that we currently have 4 teachers in third grade. 88 students would be, what would generally be 3 classrooms, not 4. So our third grade class size is quite low right now. Same with our 8th grade.
Do you have any hypotheses about why 3rd and 8th are being most affected?
It's not necessarily 3rd and 8th most affected. It's that families by and large have left the city of Chicago to move to the suburbs, to move out of state. It's not about those 2 grade levels. Those 2 grade levels last year were also lower in class size. And last year I didn't take students from the lottery because of COVID and knowing that I wanted classrooms to be small if we did return. And so we didn't make a huge effort to accept from the lottery last school year. And then this year we realized that we did have to take students from the lottery, more so than we had to in years past. But it's a district trend. This is something that's not just affecting Pierce, but it's the entire school district.
Do we have district numbers on that exodus yet? Or
I
no?
don't have it.
Thank you.
Sorry, before we move on, it looks like Matthew is not a co-host and therefore cannot unmute himself. Can someone make him a co-host?
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So thank you, Lori, for this. I looked at the attendance numbers. It looks like attendance is actually, I mean, if we look at it from based on last year, we're higher. I guess it makes sense because of COVID last year. But any concerns there about attendance?
Concerns about attendance or concerns about enrollment?
Attendance, not enrollment, but
I mean, it is concerning that we have low attendance. And so that's where Shannon is, you know, we've been collecting data to see what is our trend looking like beginning of the school year. Sometimes it's a little difficult to identify what are the specific issues for students.
Right.
But now that we're a month in, she'll be able to look at that data and identify who are students that are maybe struggling, perhaps from an anxiety perspective, versus students who are not attending because their families have been impacted by COVID, versus students who are traveling with families and then have to quarantine. So she has a tracker going where she's collecting that data that we're getting as we're communicating with families.
Got it. Thank you.
Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Mr. Seawright, can Mr. Espetia get back in? He said he's still getting a message that he's can't get let in the meeting.
I don't have any control over that. I don't know. I haven't been seeing any notifications.
Okay, so he said he's trying to get in. You're unable to rejoin the meeting because you were previously removed by the host.
Okay.
I don't know if.
Yeah, so there were three. So we have the rules about registering under your own name, and there was a phone number which I was able to verify it was John Espetia's number, and so there were two users under John Espetia. So I assumed that they were
He was sorry to cut you off. He was saying that I guess he was having technical problems, so he registered under his phone and his laptop.
Okay. Well, he can. Sorry. Oh, yeah. So he was under his phone, his laptop, and he called in.
I think it was technical issues, so he's under two devices. I'm not sure. But it's just saying that he's not allowed in now. So I don't know if the manager or the chat manager or can let.
Yeah, I think that's like a technical problem beyond my expertise.
You know those things where the people
I did have a couple more questions, Principal Zamy, around. So you said out of district, but you also said private schools. Does a student transferring to a private school, does that count as out of district?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So it could be to the suburbs or out of state, but it also could be to private school. And so what I recall from our budget discussions in the spring was that the final budget numbers were going to be determined based off of the 10-day attendance. And since we're down 67 students, by my math, that's about 6%. Does that mean that our budget is going to be affected 6%?
It could potentially be, so that would be about $300,000. I don't know how the district is going to allocate funding for next school year, but if they allocate funding the way that they have, based on previous years, that is about $300,000.
I'm sorry, is that another $300,000 for this year or for
next school year? So for this school year, our budget is not affected. Whatever money we were allocated, we keep. The question would be, how does the district determine funding for next school year? And if they are using, 10th or 20th day numbers, and if we're down 64 students, that could be another $300,000 that we lose for next school year.
Okay, so we as an LSC should anticipate that there might be a cut of
There-
them.
There's the potential for that. So if you look at it from a couple of different ways, one is that our current third grade and eighth grade classes are low. So that you could reasonably say you would need 3 classrooms at those grade levels versus 4. And then we could also say that this year's eighth grade class has 88 students. We anticipate about 112 students per grade level. So that would increase, like we anticipate that as that group of 7th graders goes into 8th grade, and then you have an incoming group of kindergarteners at about 112, that would offset it by about 24 students. But I mean, we're running the risk of losing additional funding, which, you know, we already are coming off of a year where we've lost $300,000. And so to lose $300,000 back to back has a significant impact on our work.
Thank you for that clarification.
So can I just follow up on that? So might you be more liberal on the lottery for is the kindergarten class the one that has the most or the longest lottery list, and might you accept more off the lottery then potentially next year, sort of to gamble that we'd have a higher kindergarten class to offset that?
We have 109 students currently enrolled in kindergarten. We have not exhausted the kindergarten lottery.
Right. Okay.
Because I am curious what happens once the vaccine becomes available to 5 to 11-year-olds. I don't know how many more students
Might show back up.
might be enrolling. And so we've been trying to, you know, still be a little bit conservative with our current kindergarten numbers and honestly, our first grade numbers. So what we were seeing pre-COVID was that we were having, we really couldn't accept from the lottery because we were faced with being overcrowded. And so we had to scale back. And so now it's not, you know, it's sort of like, how do you then manage an ever-changing situation? Do we anticipate that we will go back to the way things were pre-COVID, or is the exodus out of the city so large that we should anticipate accepting from the lottery? So that's where, like, throughout the summer months, I do look at our enrollment numbers, and I do have like a day-to-day sort of like enrollment tally where I can say, okay, last year at this time we had about these many students, and then we like jumped this many students within X number of weeks. And so we still can take from this year's lottery, like we have not exhausted it. We have exhausted it in, you know, some grades, but not in all grades.
Matthew would like to be unmuted again, and he has not been made a co-host. Thank you.
Oh, good. So Lori, do we have a sense of what's happening in schools around the district in terms of decrease in matriculation or enrollment?
She can't unmute. Oh, there.
I had transferred, I think because I've been switching between computers. Sam ended up, I just transferred him host and then I couldn't unmute again. So, I mean, schools throughout the city of Chicago are in the same dilemma that we are. To some extent, we're at an advantage in that we have the lottery, whereas some schools don't have a lottery. So neighborhood schools are just faced with declining enrollment in their neighborhoods, and they don't have a means of attracting new students. Whereas with magnet clusters or magnet schools, you have the lottery to be able to accept students in.
Got it. Thank you.
Miss Amy, do you have a sense what the demographics are for the students that left Pierce?
Did I include racial demographics in my slide? You can see on
Just for the 64?
On slide 11.
Okay.
The student demographics are Asian students increased by 1%, Black students decreased by 2%, Hispanic students decreased by close to 2%. White students increased by close to 3%. I don't have that by grade, but I have that as overall for the school right now.
If I could make a comment and a moment of celebration from your report, Miss Amy. The LRE1 numbers and the LRE1 percentages going from 76% of students with IEPs fully included to 91, that's not heard of in the district. And that wouldn't have happened without your vision and your commitment to the process. So I just want to celebrate that because I think it should be like celebrated.
Celebrated.
Yeah, it's not heard of across the district. So
I appreciate that. I agree. Like, I don't, honestly, even 74% is quite high. And so to get to 91 over, you know, that period of time, I mean, I agree. It is something to be celebrated. You know, I'm constantly hearing that families are coming to our school because they appreciate our approach to supporting students with IEPs. But that doesn't happen just with a school principal, right? It happens with the vision of the staff as well, and staff being supportive of that philosophy, and with families trusting that that is a good model for their children. So it is a collaborative effort.
That's great news. Miss Amy, I was going to ask about if the school year, if we're going back into it, I recall the timeline with the IB certification, is that supposed to happen this year or next year? And how is that impacted? Because I know we were going to do that jointly, I think, with SEN. And I wondered how that would be impacted since Principal Beck has moved on to the district.
Yeah, we are moving forward. We are still collaborating with SEN High School. We still maintain our partnership. Sam Lee, who's our assistant principal and MYP coordinator, meets regularly with SEN's MYP coordinator, Lauren Lucchese, and then Kim, who's our PYP coordinator, also meets with Sam. And so we, in December, will need to submit, actually, I take that back. I believe it's January is when we submit all of our, and the initial part of our work to IB. And then in the fall of next school year is when the visit will happen between Pierce and SEN.
And are there supposed to be parent roundtables as part of that?
Eventually, yeah. So there will be opportunity for input over the next year. And then in particular, once that visit happens, there will be involvement from students and from parents and staff.
Any other questions for principals, Amy? Seeing none, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, old business. First sub-item is discussion vote on approval of amended bylaws. Aisha emailed out the amended bylaws 10 days before the this LSC meeting, so we are okay to vote and discuss on them. Discuss them.
Javier, I'm sorry to interrupt. Do we need to approve internal accounts and do those things?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We might have skipped some agenda items. Sorry,
I didn't. Yeah, first day on the job. Should I move? So
I can shift in. So I gave an update on least restrictive environment. There are no additional budget updates or transfer of funds request. I will make a motion to approve the internal accounts for the month of August.
Second.
Okay.
That was Aisha.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstaining? Not voting? Motion passes unanimously. And so I think now we're okay to move on to the next point of the agenda, discussion and vote on approval of amended bylaws. Aisha, since you proposed the, do you want me to discuss the bylaws or do you? Or what do
Oh,
you?
I can chime in. I think from the organizational meeting, we discussed making an amendment for section 6. So I incorporated comments from the council at the organizational meeting. So really, if there are any other any questions from the council or comments.
Anyone want to discuss the bylaw amendments? Seeing no sentiment to discussion, do we have a motion?
I will motion to approve the amendment to section 6 in Article 4 of the bylaws for meetings.
I second. It's clear.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve the amendments? All those opposed? Abstaining? Not voting? Motion passes unanimously. Sorry, Bo, am I moving too fast when I'm, okay, good, thank you. I assume that because if I saw everyone, you did. In that case, the next sub item on the agenda is the developed capacity update. Principal Zamy, are you able to, I know that we, thank you.
Yes, I am. So I don't remember what month we began this conversation, but it took a while for the vendor number to be approved, but I am thankful to be able to report back and say that at the end of August, maybe beginning of September, there was an approved vendor number for developed capacity. Myself, Aisha, and Claire had a meeting established with developed capacity that had to be rescheduled. We are meeting tomorrow afternoon to work on next steps in our partnership.
Anyone have any questions?
Can you just say who that is again, Lori? You, Aisha, and who?
Claire.
Claire, thank you.
And just for folks who this might be their first LSC meeting, did you say what developed capacity is and why it is important?
Would you like to, Claire?
Sure. Developed capacity is a consultant that Pierce is retaining in order to work on anti-bias, anti-racist work at the school.
Any other questions? Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will move on to the next item on the agenda. The Llc Community Representative vacancy and vote on application of deadline. I went ahead and emailed a proposed motion that's going to be part of this discussion. So on August 30th, Nicole Granicki had to step down from the LSC, and we now have a vacancy. According to our bylaws, we have 60 days to fill that vacancy. So 60 days from August 30th. I reached out to Luis at the Office of LSC Relations, and he confirmed what we're required to do as part of the process. As part of this LSC meeting, we will need to announce the vacancy and then set a deadline for applications for the vacancy. Applications must be delivered in person to the office, and there are no specific guidelines on the amount of time for the deadline. So it's up to us. Luis recommended 2 days before the next LSC meeting. That would be on Thursday, October 21st. I'm a little, I proposed Monday, I believe at noon, which would be about 3 days before the next LSC meeting. And that'll give the LSC enough time to scan and distribute the any applications we have. And then at the October 21st meeting, we will, if we decide to give any candidates an opportunity to speak at that meeting, and then we will go into closed session to discuss the candidates. And then once we go out of closed session, we will have the opportunity to move someone's candidacy into nomination. And we are, the LSC reference, the guidelines say that we need to have a majority of serving members. We currently have 11 serving members. Majority of that would be 6. So the candidate would need 6 votes of LSC members to become a community rep, and they would start immediately after that vote. Opening it up to discussion around the process in general, and specifically that October 18th at noon deadline. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
I do. I think that deadline makes sense. I'm wondering what we are thinking about is valid as a posting the vacancy. Just putting it on the LSC page of the website, or some other further action.
That is up to us. All that we're required to do is announce the vacancy and vote on the deadline. So yeah, we would be fulfilling our obligations by the Office of LSC Relations.
Just by announcing it here in the meeting.
Just by announcing it and passing the motion on the deadline. As far as what we're required to do, what we're I am going to post. I'm going to make a public posting on Parents of Peers probably, but maybe, I don't know. I guess that's up to us. There's no hard and fast rules as far as that goes.
I think it's a great idea to post to the LSC page and to parents of, you know, that's where people are typically going to go and search that information out if they know someone.
And in the newsletter.
In the newsletter, yes.
Yeah.
The PS, so the only problem with Parents of Pierce is that it's the private group. PSO is a public group. So we can ask the PSO to, if they'd be willing to just post that on the PSO public page.
Javier, we can post it on the school's Facebook and Instagram page as well.
Okay.
That feels like due diligence to me.
Yeah. I'd prefer not to pass a motion on that, just because then it would be on me to make sure that all that stuff happened. But if we want to, we can.
No, this is just discussion. I'm wondering what everybody's thinking.
Yeah, I appreciate the discussion. Any other discussion? If not, I will just read. I've emailed.
Javi,
yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to add one more thing. Is it possible to do backpack mail? Maybe, Miss Amy? To include that in backpack mail?
We can, we've been very short-staffed. And so, and we've been very busy. And so we have not been doing a lot of backpack mail right now. Just from like a capacity standpoint, but we may be able to do that.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will read out the motion that I emailed out. The Pierce Local School Council has a vacancy for community representative. Applications for the community representative role must be received in person at the school by Monday, October 18th, 2021 at 12 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstaining? Not voting? Motion passes unanimously. The next item under old business is building leases.
During, I believe it was our June meeting, we approved as a council some of the after-school programs that we have historically worked with to be programs that we would continue to partner with. Brooke Thompson, who is coordinating after-school programs, has been in communication with some of those vendors to offer fee-based after-school programming, specifically for our younger age students, so that those flyers will go out as soon as we are ready to advertise our program. But I don't have any additional requests for approval of building leases.
Thank you, Principal Zamy, for that update. Is there any discussion on this sub-item?
The same, unless anyone else has something, I'm sorry. It's nice. I'm not chair and I have all these questions. I just wanted to ask Ms. Zamy, for the organizations that are leasing from us, whose responsibility it is to manage, maintain liability insurance, to keep that on record. Is it the districts or is it ours or Pierce's?
The organization. So there is an agreement that they have to put in place with the out of school time office along with real estate, and they have to have their own insurance that is submitted to the district for their program to be approved.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, we will move on to public participation, and I have been monitoring the email. There is one email for public comment, and I will read that at the end of at the end after anyone else wants to speak. Looks like chat has been enabled. If you'd like to participate in public participation, please type stack into the chat now. Okay, I see first person in public participation is Stack. Who's stacked is Nicole Granicki. Who's that? Nicole is muted. I'm not sure who's responsible.
There we go.
There you go. Thank you.
There we go. Hi, everybody. I just had a quick question for Principal Zamy about the weekly COVID testing. I was wondering, once that does get rolling, are the pre-K students going to be included in that? We did get a message to sign up for it, and I did sign up my daughter, but I was hearing mixed messages about whether or not they were going to be included or not.
If you don't mind, I can answer that. I had 2 students at the main building and 3 students at the branch. Obviously, the personnel issue that I described earlier, we will have someone report over to the branch once we get additional personnel. However, both pre-K students that had been elected had a very hard time with it, and I was not going to force the issue to scare them with the initial process. So I will try again with them. I will contact those parents who signed them up to maybe have a conversation with their student to familiarize themselves with the process, possibly like taking a little Q-tip and trying it themselves prior to that. But I didn't want to cause any trauma in the process when they refused to take it. But any additional student from pre-K is also 100% entitled to sign up.
Great, thank you.
Next person on stack is Greg.
Hi, thanks, Javi. Can you hear me all right? Okay, thanks. This was a question for Principal Amy. I was hoping, Principal Amy, that you could just share a little bit more about, in your update, you mentioned there was one class where the class had to go into remote learning, but only for a couple days because it sounded like whatever the incident was or the information, the suspected like COVID case that had caused remote learning to be begun turned out not to be actually a COVID case or a COVID case that involved close contacts. But I was wondering if you could just share a little bit more about how that played out. I know for me, like that's an area where it would be helpful to have as much clarity as possible. Thanks.
Sure. Yeah. So I learned, a new process. So before school got out in June, we, had to quarantine a couple of classrooms because there was a confirmed COVID case. This was the first time where I quarantined a group and, used a flip to remote, and then that group ended up coming back. I didn't realize, I never registered that would be an option, that would actually pan out. So in this particular case, I can give a little bit of detail. So there was a student who, who tested positive on a rapid test. The family did not think that the child was positive, tested the next day, and the child was negative. And they got a PCR test at that point. PCR test is the more reliable test. And so they thought that it was a false positive, but because we had a COVID positive case, you want to take precaution, flip the class to remote until we have confirmation, see what happens, and then return. So because the PCR test was taken within 48 hours of the positive test, and that test came back negative, the group of students was able to return back to the classroom. So that was the scenario in that one. And so because it was the flip to remote, there isn't like a school-wide notification that goes out versus when you have that confirmation. So the contact tracing team actually had not even initiated the contact tracing process yet. It was just that we received notification of a COVID positive case and received approval to flip the class. So, and the timeline was like Wednesday, we found out, Thursday and Friday class was quarantined. Sunday, we were able to flip the class back. Monday morning, the students were returned to school. So my update for that will go out in this week's communication by and large. So I tried to include it in last week's communication in terms of this is what we have, because there was no district communication, but then I will update that the class was under quarantine for 2 days in this week's communication.
The next person under stack is Michelle Platts.
Hi, this question's for Miss Amy. I heard her talk about we lost $300,000 in funding, and I was wondering if she could explain more in detail why we lost the funding and where the funding was going that we lost.
The $300,000 was the budget that we received in April, May, and that impacted this year's operations. And so that was as a result of our loss of Title I funds as a school. So we had to cut, one music teacher from our staff. We lost, I think it was like 1.5 interventionists. So it ended up becoming positions that were lost as a result of that $300,000 cut.
Next person under stack is Dusty. Can someone unmute Dusty? Thank you.
All right. Yeah, I had a couple of things. Excuse me. One
was the students that are now the IEP, students with IEPs who are now on LRE1. Do we know how that increase in percentage happens? Is it like a change in the demographics of the types of IEPs that students have? Is it just an ability to support those students better that had, you know, more serious cases in classroom, or something different?
It's a combination of efforts. So the IEP team convenes to discuss student needs based on assessment data from whoever the evaluators are. And based on, you know, sort of like their recommendations, that's how an IEP is developed. What we've been doing as a school is engaging in professional learning around supporting students in the least restrictive environment. And so what we're seeing at Pierce is not so much a change in demographics, but more the students that we currently have in our building, how are we supporting them? What is our philosophy? And then how are we, you know, really maximizing support so that students can receive support in the general education classroom. Research says that that's the best environment for students. And I think a lot of people often misinterpret what LRE levels actually mean. And so we've just been doing a lot of training and development and thinking about belief systems when we're at the table writing these IEPs.
Great. And then the other question I had was looking at the breakdown, the percentages for teachers versus teachers and staff demographics. The like column for teachers doesn't add to 100%. Is like, how can I interpret that particular chart?
On the one slide, you have to add all of the staff and teachers.
Okay. So that both columns together would add to 100%. So if we wanted to find the demographic breakdown for just teachers, just add those together. Okay, perfect. All right, thank you.
Next person in stack is Sean.
Hi, thanks. I just wanted to thank Professor Zamy and resident principal Gianmichello, as well as all the rest of the faculty and staff that have been helping the kids eat outside for lunch. As one of the only unmasked periods in the day, it's much safer to have lunch outside. And I also, I don't know, in your principal report, Principal Zamy, you said that we probably won't be doing anything outdoors once there's inclement weather, but I do know there's parents working on that. So I'm glad that parents are working on trying to come up with ways for the kids to still eat outside once it gets a little cold and maybe even rainy. And then I hope that, you know, parents can help to provide, you know, raise any funds that might need to be raised for that. And I'd also wanted to encourage, I don't know exactly how all of the testing is working, but I wanted to encourage other parents. I've signed up my kids to get tested. I don't know how that's all gonna happen, but I think it is really important to help prevent the spread, to kind of have testing in place, and I'm glad to hear it's kind of getting off the ground. I also did a dry run yesterday on the quarantine protocols with my kids, and I just wanted to sort of share that it was it would be good if there was some sort of testing available. My daughter had a runny nose. She was sent to the care room, and then they had to send the sibling home as well. Evidently, there's so it'd be good if there was some the testing available for kids that are in that that are sent to the care room, or a list of places that you could go to get tested. We went to immediate care, and they said that an asymptomatic test is, if it doesn't turn up negative, is gonna, or if it turns up negative, then insurance is going to charge you $160. So I mean, I'll wait and see what happens when we get that bill, but it would be good if there was some other support for that in the district, if not in the school. So,
Sean, did you not receive a list of testing places that you could go to for a free COVID test when you picked up your children?
No, I didn't. I got a list. I just got a thing on one side that said why they've been sent to the care room, and on the back it just had a report that it wasn't actually clear. I mean, it said I had to send it to a physician, which means you just go into a free testing place. It's not clear that you can go to a free testing place. It says that you have to get a physician's report to examine them, and then as part of that, it says you can get the physician may ask for a test, and so that's what. But when we went to the care room, they said that our students could only return with a negative test. So they said that they could only come with a negative test. There was no list of testing places, and I'm not, we managed it, but I think that if there's other parents, especially if you're told that you're gonna have to pay almost $200 to get a test, that you're gonna be upset. So
I'll follow up.
I mean, I'm just sort of.
Ms.
Yeah.
Munoz is working with our care room attendants, so I'll just make sure that the proper information is going out to families. I'll double check that.
And I'd also note there's a bunch of rhinovirus circulating in the district right now, and runny nose by itself is not necessarily a COVID symptom. So just as but I'm sure you have the rules you have to follow. I'd also like to say that I know this is later in the meeting, but I'm really excited about the upcoming Northwestern study. And so I think that that's going to be an exciting development for the school, and I hope other parents are going to participate in that. So if there's any other information I can give Principal Amy about the testing and all that, I'm happy to fill you in. But thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Before we continue with public participation, according to the bylaws that we just passed, we said that public participation would be 10 minutes, and that has been 13 minutes. I didn't want to cut off Sean, even though we had hit 10 minutes. We did leave open the opportunity for the LLC to decide to extend public participation. So I wanted to, we have a second public participation at the end of the meeting. So I wanted guidance on how to proceed.
I'm wondering if we just wait till that other public participation and then vote at that point, if we want to extend it. How do others feel though?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Thank you, Principal Amy.
I
In
agree.
that case, sorry, was someone saying something?
I just said I agree. I was one of the people that put a stack in. I'm reading something on behalf of somebody, but it can wait till the end.
Okay, sounds good. In that case, the next item on the agenda is new business. The first item is a discussion vote on in-person LLC meetings. So I sent out an email to the LSC on the criteria for continuing. Sorry, so we trying to decide how much background to give. We received some guidance on returning to in-person meetings. We received then further guidance, which left it up to the chair. I had a meeting with Principals Amy, Matthew, and Shannon, where we discussed the logistics of an in-person meeting, specifically the logistics of a hybrid in-person meeting, so that we could support members of the LSC who wanted to dial into the meetings. Based off of that discussion, we decided it was impractical for this first meeting to return to in-person, so we would have this meeting remotely, and this would give us an opportunity to discuss returning to in-person. For those who are not aware, the law allows for the chair of a public body to conduct the meeting virtually if the chair decides that it is impractical or imprudent. There's other guidance about only doing it under certain circumstances, but that's guidance and suggestions. Basically, they leave it up to the chair to decide, which is not a situation that I particularly enjoy being in, as not wanting to compel people to go into the building when they don't feel that it's safe.
Mr. Seawright, are we allowed to make a comment? Are we allowed to make a comment?
Comment on what?
On the in-person meeting?
Yes, I was just trying to frame the question, and then we were gonna have a discussion amongst the LSC.
Okay, 'cause I wanted to make a comment. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fair. I feel like all of the members of the LSC have received the pertinent emails, and I'm perfectly fine leaving it at that and opening it up to discussion. Jerry, you can go ahead.
So I'm on maternity leave, but I'm still allowed to attend LSC meetings, and I've been included on the emails. And something that struck a chord with me was, we were talking about the acoustics in the gym, which I get, but then moving into a classroom, which would be unsafe. And as a teacher, I know that we're sitting with, like, my class is sitting with 28 kids in a classroom. I know there's a fourth grade class sitting with, I think, 30, maybe almost 29 kids in a classroom. So I just think, as the governing body of the LSC and the one setting an example, I think that at least we should be in the building, because we're saying it's safe for our children to be in the building, and we're saying it's safe for our teachers to be in the building. Now, I do get not having like 200 people in the gymnasium. I get that, but I do think that as the LSC and as the body that, the liaison between the community, I think it's important that we set that example and we be in the building. Because if we're saying it's not safe for us, then why is it safe for our teachers and our children? So I guess I'm just saying that I stand in solidarity with our teachers and our children who are already in the building. So that is my comment. And Mr. Sear, I know this is like not your personal choice of not to have it or to have it. Like, this is a discussion across all LSCs. I've been getting other emails about it, and there's stuff on Facebook and everything. But at the end of the day, I think we need to show solidarity with our teachers and our students. So thank you.
And I just want to also clarify, Jerry, I agree that, the building is safe for us to be in. Part of the challenge right now is that the district guidance is saying that we have to maintain 6 feet for adult meetings. And that's actually the biggest challenge, which is why a classroom would not work. And so, when we met, it was more about how can we make an in-person meeting work so that the acoustics are fine, so that those at home can hear us, so that those in person are able to be in touch. So I agree, we can meet, it is safe. But the challenges for this meeting were, sort of bigger than I think the three of us wanted to make a decision for everybody on.
And
I
take responsibility for that language. I wrote that email. I think when I got to that particular section, I was a little bit rushed and used shorthand. I also, since I didn't state a preference, I would prefer to be, what I should have wrote in that section is what Principal Zamy just said, that based on the guidance and the number of people that we can have in a classroom. And I did make a subsequent communication to the newsletter where I clarified that language. So I apologize for.
I know this wasn't a personal choice. This is a problem across the board. I'm just speaking as the teacher rep. And then what Ms. Zamy said, also the guidance for adults is 6 feet apart, which is ironic because the adults are probably mostly vaccinated, where our kids can be 3 feet apart and they're not vaccinated. So, it's just, this is not anything the three of you made the decision. I just, as a teacher rep, want to say, I think that some form of us should be in the building.
Right, and I'm not. I wasn't trying to. I was just trying to take responsibility for the language in the email, for it being imprecise. And I am perfectly. I think it's safe to be in the building. So I should have. My ideal would be to have a minimum of a quorum in the building and give the opportunity for other LSC members to dial in. But I don't, if I'm put in a position where I'm forced to compel other LSC members to come in, I won't do that. My preference would be for to find out if there are at least 6 members of the LSC willing to be in the office, in the school in person, and that will give the opportunity for there to be more people. More members of the public present.
I like that idea. I think that's a great idea, Mrs. Seawright, and I agree with you in saying that I should say I don't know everyone's personal situations and why or why not they would not be comfortable being in the building. So I think we should definitely give that option. No.
And I was definitely thinking of you, Jerry, like asking you to come into the building when you have a newborn. I would not want that, like compel you and your newborn to come into the building. That's just not it,
I
outside of the
appreciate
COVID
that.
times.
My boys are in school and unfortunately not of age to get vaccinated. So, it is what it is, but you are right. I should consider everyone's personal things. I just would like to at least be offered.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I see Claire has their hand raised.
I just wanted to plus one to everything that Jerry said. That was going to be my comment also. I feel like pretty strongly that if we expect our children to be in person, then we should also be in person. And if teachers are in person, then we should be in person. And also, I understand why people might not want to do that. I personally am happy to be in the building for future meetings to contribute to a forum. And that's, I have to hop off in 5 minutes. So that's what I wanted to add.
Hi, Javi. I won't belabor this as well, but I agree with both Jerry and Claire. So that's where I stand. I think we should model behavior that we expect from our teachers and our students as well.
I'm gonna just chime in. I'm thinking about, this may or may not make sense, but I also think about the building as kind of a bubble, even though there's, 1,000 kids in the building and, countless members of staff. So, I mean, there's 12 of us. I'm honestly on the fence because the more people introduced to the building, the more opportunity there is. So that's just kind of where I'm swimming, kind of on both sides, and whether to be in person or not. But I also want to make sure that for, folks that there might be health reasons, vaccinated, unvaccinated, whatever, that they have an opportunity if they're more comfortable, joining remotely, they can.
Evan, it seemed like you had something to say.
Oh, I was going to ask if there are any LSC members who don't feel comfortable coming into the building.
I'm comfortable coming in, just for clarification. I'd be willing.
I'll say I don't know.
I was there last week. It was fine. I think for me, it's more sort of the logistics, right? I mean, we've had the opportunity to get a lot of participation for the past meetings. I don't think that we have a way yet to address that, whether it's in a small classroom or in a large auditorium. I don't want to lose the parent and teacher remote participation. I think that's made a big difference in knowing what's happening at the school and being plugged in, pun intended. I think, so that's what we need to work on. I think that if we have a way to make it, look, it took us 25 minutes to get this thing started on the remote basis. So if we bring in the hybrid option, we need to really get prepared and see what we can test and get done. Because again, I don't want to lose the participation.
Principal Zamy, maybe you can answer this because I know there's been back and forth. So if you're a volunteer or you're an LSC member coming in the building, do you have to be vaccinated or declare your vaccination status?
So level 1 volunteers will have to submit their vaccination status and have it in order to be able to volunteer. I'm unsure, honestly, of the requirement of LSC members.
So level 2 volunteers do not have to be vaccinated.
I want to check the guidance before I publicly say an answer to that.
Okay, and then so we would have to find out the LSC, because I guess my question is like, if it's public knowledge whether someone's vaccinated or not, then as the community, like having someone in the building who's not vaccinated, like then it opens up a whole, that's why I'm curious about if we could find out the protocols for whether people need to be vaccinated to attend, because teachers have to be vaccinated to be in the building.
The public does not need to be vaccinated to attend.
Thank you.
Claire? Oh, Claire's leaving. Bye, Claire. I believe that there was some, in the guidance, there was something about vaccinations and requiring vaccinations, but I don't require off the top of my head. I will look it up at my next opportunity, but I'm thank you, Matthew, for bringing up the public participation portion of this, because first I wanted to get a sense of LSC members wanting to return to in-person and their which we just did, but then also I've been getting a lot of feedback from parents that moving to in-person would cut off the public participation that's been happening. And I've been telling them that personally that in my discussions that we would be trying to maintain some kind of virtual element so that people would be able to see us. But I was also trying to be clear with some people that it wouldn't necessarily be perfect right away. So even if for the first meeting in person, if we need somebody pointing a camera at us and streaming it over the YouTube while we get things going. But do we want to talk about some of the logistic issues that we've been considering? The biggest one to me is Spanish interpretation. We've had Spanish interpretation over Zoom, and we've had Spanish interpretation in person. Would we have to do both? And what would that look like?
I think from interpretation, we can have an interpreter in person who is able to also speak into the Zoom feature. But I think that we can also engage with our interpreters to see if they are faced with this in any other meetings and how they're handling it.
As far as how to deal with hybrid, one of the options that we've been talking about and that other schools have done is everyone being on their own device while at the meeting. So interacting with one another, but having the device in front of them so that we would still be able to interact with anyone who was remote. The one issue with that is to avoid feedback, we would need one source for a microphone and one source for a speaker for those that are remote. So just some of the things that we've been considering. Any more discussion?
I do know from remote teaching with the co-teacher that when we both had headphones plugged in with our microphones, as long as the other person was muted when like I was speaking, there wasn't feedback or anything like that. So that's another consideration.
Principal Amy, would it be able to for some of us to go into the building, into the space, and just fire up a Zoom meeting to see what that would be like?
Yes, I think we would have to keep it to 3 members so that it's not an official LSC meeting, but we can do a trial run. We can use some of our staff at the school to help do that. You know, like Shannon, Sam, Kristen, a couple members. We can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Evan, do you think using that option, would we all have to be wearing what I like to call our Britney Spears on?
No, I just had earbuds when we taught
You
last.
just turn it off
last spring.
whenever you're not talking.
Yeah.
So everybody would have to have a laptop in front of them.
Or a mobile device.
Or some, yeah. So it sounds like we can test that option of having folks in the building. I think Lori said no more than 3 members of the LSC, but we can see if we can have more people to simulate that and see what it would look like. I think that sounds like a good idea.
Do we see, is there any more discussion? Do we see a need for a vote on this? The general sentiment seems to be to try to go hybrid.
I think we try between now and then and a couple of times, and just like we did before this meeting, and come up with a final decision before the next meeting. I don't think we need to vote on it.
Yeah, this feels like things are changing, by the day with COVID. So test it, see how it works. And for those, on the council that would be comfortable coming in, come in. And for those that don't or unable to, join by your device.
The next meeting is on October 21st, and there are estimates that children between 5 and 11 could start getting vaccinated around Halloween. So maybe this will be less of a problem over the next couple of months. Okay, then I feel comfortable moving on with the next item on the agenda. The discussion on dissolution of PAC and vote on a parent support committee. So I will go ahead and try to be brief with this. So as we all know, as we all know, we've lost Title I funds, and with the loss of Title I funds, we've also lost our parent advisory committee. Over the past, I want to say 6 months or so, since the spring, the parent leaders have been meeting to discuss what would become of some of the responsibilities of PAC. Aisha has already reported back on some of these discussions. Over the summer, the different leaders of the different parent groups met and tried to discuss what should happen next. There was a general consensus that PAC had different functions. There was the parent communication and engagement portion that parent leaders decided could be rolled into the PSO, but that left that left one of the most important things that Sarah, the former president of PAC, that she kept stressing was the need for an accountability. That one of the most important things about PAC is that the principal had to be accountable to PAC, and that when an issue with parents came up, that PAC had to that the principal had to meet with them. And that accountability portion would be lacking in having the PSO PSO take over. The PSO wouldn't be able to have that functionality. The other thing that I found out when talking with Sarah is that, so we were trying to decide on what role the LSC could have, if the LSC could take over that accountability portion. And the solution that I came up with would be a parent support committee. That's a committee of the LSC that would be responsible for making sure that the parent workshops and parent engagement and reaching out to parents who need help would still continue to happen. I also considered what, so there's what PAC has historically been able to do, but I think we should also consider what PAC has been restricted from doing. So there were issues that were brought to PAC that if they were outside of the socioeconomic mission of PAC, that they weren't able to do. So PAC has also served as a, sorry, my words are leaving me, as an environment for trying out different ideas to support parents. And so REP was one of these things that was an offshoot of PAC, partially because PAC wasn't allowed to focus on that. I have parents constantly, not constantly, I have parents coming up to me with equity, gender equity issues that we don't have anyone picking up. And this is a role that I feel like a parent support committee would fill. Sorry, I'm kind of rambling. It's a little bit, I'm feeling a bit tired. I will open up to discussion.
So, sorry, Javi, if I missed this. Is your recommendation that somebody or members of the LSC actually lead this parent support committee?
So I was trying to figure out the accountability portion, and that the only one of the few groups that the administration that has is accountable to is the LSC. So the beauty, that one of the positive things about an LSC committee is that it doesn't need to be made of just LSC members. So members of the Pierce community could join an LSC committee, and so they could do the work, and there can be an LSC member who is a part of that committee. There's also, when we had the parent collab meeting, the meeting of the parent leaders, there was a suggestion that whatever this group could be, whatever group we have that took over the accountability could also have members of the different parent groups on there, representatives, so that they can figure out how to leverage the resources of FOP, of PSO in supporting parents. My main reason for bringing this up at the LSC is the accountability portion. This is, if there is an issue, Sarah kept stressing it, and when the parent leaders kept discussing it, we kept coming back to if there was, just because a parent has an issue doesn't mean the administration has to listen, and one of the few bodies that has the ability to hold the administration accountable is the LSC. There was also a sentiment that amongst the parent leaders that this wasn't something that should just be discussed amongst the parent leaders, and this was, they wanted an opportunity to open it up to public discussion. So one of the places where public discussion like that could happen is the LSC. I said that I would bring it up here so that members of the Pierce community could chime in. We don't need I added this in old and new business with a vote, but we can always have a vote later if we decide we want to wait and listen to parent comment, public comment.
Here's just a alternative suggestion as well. I know early on this year we had or held parent office hours once a month, or I think actually it was once a week, I think it was. We took turns hosting those. We didn't get a lot of turnout, but it's not to say that those office hours, are not important now, especially with PAC being dissolved. So maybe we return back to the parent office hours to see if that would provide some support. And then we can have a permanent item add to the agenda about parent support that we could present out based on, concerns that we're hearing during those periods. Just one thought.
Yeah, I like that. We haven't scheduled any of those for this school year yet.
My recollection with this conversation, this was, last spring, was, how, again, we're centering the parents, that PAC provided this training opportunity or support for our parents, and how we keep the ball moving with that. So I like the idea of continuing office hours, but I also like the idea of, this is something that rests with the council as a committee, and, that we have this parent leadership group, but also, we considering, parents that aren't necessarily, leading a parent group participating in that. But my concern, or what would be really important for me, I should say, is that we keep the ball moving, that, there's collaborating going on. It was great to see that these requests came in from the teachers for the backpacks for the kids, and, a need was identified, and, the parents or Sarah was able to work with, with the teachers and with the funds that were available. And just as a need comes up, that we're able to still kind of move on things like that quickly, to kind of keep PAC alive and, this different iteration.
Yeah, one of the things that was discussed was, like, do we really need, how much accountability do we really need? There is, like, we all know each other and we all get like, my problem would be like not having a formal group who does that, because right now it's like, yes, if someone on the rep steering committee, if someone on the LSC, if the PSO, but I don't, so that's the, like that. I mean, stuff like that happens because we all talk, but if we're being frank, there's a lot of concentration of power right now in the fifth graders. Like, so if you're a fifth grade parent, you're all set, that's it. But yeah, I'm in favor of moving with this informally and then getting a sense of how we are doing with it. Is there any more sentiment for discussion on this topic? Seeing no sentiment from Llc members, I'm going to go ahead, and I see Ashley has her hand up, but that would be more appropriate for public participation. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next point on the agenda, which is the Northwestern University focus groups. Can I call you Josiah? Are you a professor? Should I refer to you as professor? No, Josiah. Okay. Let's see. Let me.
Hi, Javier. Thank you. I'm Josiah. Can I share my screen? Is that okay? Or
That's outside of my technical. Let's see.
I might need to be made a co-host to share. I don't know though. Okay, great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time that you all have given me to kind of talk to you about this project. I'm going to be talking today about community conversations, where we'll talk about race and society in school. First, I want to start off by introducing myself. Some of you I've seen before and some I haven't, but I'm a fourth-year PhD candidate at Northwestern University, where I study social psychology. I was born here in Chicago, and I'm a resident in Rogers Park, so I'm familiar with the area and the community. But I was, growing up, I grew up on the west side in Hope Park, and so I, kind of grew up through the public school system, and then went to a private college, and a lot of my kind of educational journey was characterized by struggles. My family's first generation low income, and so a lot of why I pursued graduate school was to learn ways to support students and their academic success. And that's largely what I do now. A lot of the work that I do is with young people, from children to college students, trying to understand how they think about themselves and their identities, but also how they're making sense of the world around them, and the roles that parents and teachers play in that. So why am I here today? Why am I talking to you all? So over the last year, I've been working in collaboration with Pierce community members, including staff, parents, and administration, to think about this larger project. And where it kind of started was, this partnership with Northwestern has been going on for the last 6 years. Through my advisor, Dr. Mesman Destin. And so there was a series of projects that have been done around mentorship and identity pathways. But as we were thinking about what the next phase would be, it was September 2020, and we had just gone through a volatile summer, BLM movement and protests and violence. And so what we were hearing from the Pierce community was that it would be really great to get a sense as to how the community is thinking about race and identity, and what would it mean for us to, have conversations with parents and students and staff. And so we brought on my other advisor, Dr. Ani Rogers, who's an expert in qualitative research, to help us co-design and co-develop this project with the Pierce community. And so what's the project? The project really is for us to think about and understand how the Pierce community is engaging with topics of race and identity. And so in collaboration with, what I'm calling our research advisory board, but the people who we've been collaborating with for a while, we thought it would be best to have conversations. And these conversations would be between and amongst staff alone, parents together, and students together. And so these questions have been vetted and reviewed by not only our advisory board and the people that we've been working with, but they've been reviewed by Northwestern and the ethical office here, and they've been reviewed and approved by the district and the research review board. And so the questions and the topics that we'll be discussing have been approved. But a large part of the last year has been also working around and thinking about what would it mean to have these conversations in really safe and in safe spaces that are protected and confidential. And so all of these conversations will be facilitated by members of the Northwestern team who've been trained and have experience facilitating these conversations. We know that they can be really sensitive. And so we've done a really great job of not only training our facilitators, but doing a lot of this work over many years, who were interested in recruiting our students
in grades 3 through 8, but also staff and parents. And we're particularly emphasizing participation from parents who may not have the opportunities maybe to engage in spaces like these, or who may not always have the opportunity to engage in the peers community. And so we're really emphasizing being able to recruit and have conversations with parents like that. We'd hope that these conversations would happen in person, but as we have been talking about, and as the reality of the situation that we're in this country is that COVID and the global pandemic is real, and so we're hoping to also offer a virtual option for parents who may not be available, or they really can't do in-person conversations with us. But you might be asking yourself, what's the end point? What's the goal of this project? The first is really for us to give an overview and to, the plan would be to offer some research dissemination or a presentation to the larger community. And ideally, this would be, a presentation that includes parents and students and staff, where we would, talk about, look, these are the patterns and themes that have emerged from our conversations across each of these groups. This is what the peers community thinks about and has been talking about with us around race and identity. But it wouldn't end there. We would hope that the insights that we have from this conversation would help us to kind of support curriculum development. So what would it look like to kind of create materials and develop materials that engage these ideas? The second, and this kind of spurred on a lot of this project, was the idea of creating racial affinity groups to support students in their own racial identity development and thinking about what it means to be a raced person in a raced country. And then teacher training. So what would it look like for us to, from these conversations, provide teachers and staff with the resources and the tools to be able to engage in these kinds of conversations? And what would it look like to support them in the classroom and kind of school setting? But what am I asking of you today? I'm asking first if if you're interested in participating, that you would sign a consent form and a survey so that we can schedule these conversations with you all. Mr. Lee, the assistant principal, will send out some emails, but we'll also put it in a newsletter through Principal Zamy. We'd also like you to sign consent forms to help us recruit your children. Again, we have a lot of expertise in dealing with conversations with race with children, and yeah, we'd love for you to partner with us and be a part of this project with us. But I didn't want to take up too much of your time. I know that this meeting still has a lot of agenda items, so I'd love to take questions from the council. But if you have any questions for me that I can't get to, I unfortunately have to leave after this. But if you have any questions for me, you can send them to this email or call my work phone between the hours of 8 and 5. But with that, I'll take any questions that the council might have for me.
What's the time period that you're trying to do this over?
So we ideally are trying to begin in early October with parents and staff. And then we're looking to hopefully end student focus groups by the end of March of next year. That way, we can get as many students in between the Christmas break and spring break time period. And we're really emphasizing to facilitators to really keep these conversations to about 45 minutes to an hour. But we really don't want to take up, too much of your time. These would be in groups of 6, so it wouldn't be super large groups. You'd be compensated for your time. So.
Is there a way for, this is Trey, sorry. Is there
nice
a way, how are you? Is there a way for, assuming that we get the notices out in time and we, the parents, some parents participate, some don't. is there a way of getting an announcement out back to the council so that we could do some communication support to ensure that we have a representative mix from our LEP parents, parents of color who are, maybe tired of these, surveys. I mean,
Yeah, I definitely would love your support, and so I'm hoping, to begin recruiting in early October, but if over the next month or so, and by the time you meet again, I'm still struggling to find parents who, like you said, are parents of color or parents from OSCS backgrounds who are harder to reach. I would love your support in being able to reach them. So I'll definitely, lean on this group if that's available to me to kind of reach out to those parents.
Any other questions for Josiah? In that case, thank you for Josiah for coming to present to us.
For sure. Thank you. I hope you all have my email and number, but I really appreciate it. And I hope to see you all soon in person. So bye-bye.
Bye. The next item on the agenda is discussion and vote on an October special CIWP and budget meeting. And the motivation for this is the LSC reference guide, which after becoming chair, I decided to read it over again in more detail this time. There is language in there on page 13 where under LSC calendar that in October, the LSC issues the LSC annual report on the LSC activities and conducts the first biannual progress report to the school community on the CIWP and budget.
So here we've combined those meetings within an LSC meeting, and generally it's done through the state of the school presentation, and then every month there's an update to the community around work with CIWP. I'm not sure what else the LSC would like to see in relationship to that.
So are you saying that we've already satisfied? There isn't a special report and meeting that we need to give in October?
That's correct.
Okay. Then that is that on that item then. The next item on the agenda, sorry, does anyone have anyone want to discuss that? Okay. The next item on the agenda is committee reports. The first sub item is the Bilingual Advisory Committee. Is reached out to Mr. Lerner. I'm not sure if Mr. Lerner is in the meeting. If not, he emailed me his report and I can read it. I'm not seeing him in the meeting, so let me just call it up in my email. Sorry, let me look it up.
Javier, while you look for that, can I give the PPLC update since that's next and we come back to back?
Yes, thank you, Evan, for
Great.
saving me again.
So the PPLC, the Professional Personnel Leadership Committee, is in the current stages of setting up. We had elections last week nominations for membership the week before. And right now we're in the process of deciding our meeting dates, which will be once a month moving forward. So by October, we should have a fully functional, up and running PPLC. I hope that was enough time for you, Javi.
Muted. I think I'm going to need more time. Let's see. Principal Evaluation Committee. Do we have someone on that? Seeing none, safety and security.
I believe that's me.
I do too.
Okay. We had the opportunity to go visit the inside of the school. I had not been in there for a while. You will pardon my emotion there. We were able to actually visit some classes, which was great. It was right before school started, and the day before, after classes were let go. So just trying to do a walkthrough, a really quick walkthrough, not trying to bother people and see how things were. And it seemed like Lori was pretty comfortable with what was going on. And so we don't really have any update there other than personally, as a parent, not beyond the LSC, I was pretty happy because, the kids have been there, the teachers have been there for a while. So I think if there was something we would have known or they would have notified us. So it was great to be back in there. Like I said, it was a little bit more emotional or great. It was great. We still don't have the slide fixed in the playground. I think there continues to be delays on, but hopefully we'll get an update on that very soon. Other than that, again, very happy to have been able to get inside the school, and that's it.
I have found my emails, all the emails from Mr. Lerner. It looks like their first meeting is September 28th. So I'm thinking that he doesn't have any update beyond that. I know that I've spoken formally with him and he's trying to recruit people to join back. The next sub-item is bylaws, which we've already dealt with at this meeting. After that is cleanliness. I know that historically has been Ms. Baumgarten, but I know she's on maternity leave.
And Aisha, according to our June or July organizational meeting.
Okay.
But Evan and Lori are both on the safety committee. Well, I guess that's not cleanliness. That's what we said. Sorry.
Okay. So no report this month. Okay. The next item is Llc Communications, which was headed up by Nicole, who resigned. I think there's an expectation that Bill.
The current members, according to our July organizational meeting, are Javier, Elisa, and myself.
Okay.
As far as I know, we have not met.
We have not. We would remember.
I believe so.
Then others. All right. Next item on the agenda is community reports. Friends of Pierce. I know that Chad Curry was here at one point.
I have his notes that I can read if he's not here.
Chad is still here.
He's here.
He is here. I asked him to.
couldn't unmute myself. Chad Curry, I'm president of Friends of Peers. Thank you, Bill, for saying you could read those for me. So for those that are on the meeting that may not know, Friends of Pierce is the fundraising group, parent-led fundraising group for Pierce. We raise funds and donate them to the school for various needs, arts programs, and things like water fountains that have refillable stations, and hand washing stations that are in the school currently. So I want to give you a sense of some of the things we're currently working on. Last year, we did not do any real fundraising because of the pandemic, and we're slowly moving into doing some of that, but we have some expenditures I just wanted to make you aware of. Because the kids are having lunch outside, we had a couple parents, I think it was Dory and Rebecca Wynn, that approached a number of groups to ask about getting some type of tarp that could be put outside for each class to sit on. And they approached us about funding it, and we approved that. And the tarps were to be ready, I think, yesterday, and Rebecca was going to be able to pick those up to bring to the school. So I think within the next few days, they should be showing up for the kids. So we're pretty excited to be able to help with that. Secondly, we just had a yard sale, and I want to thank Michelle Platts, who was here earlier, but she's no longer on the call, I believe. She organized it for us, and we ended up raising $2,590. And I want to thank Kelly Fulmar, too, another board member who worked really hard on this, and Matthew Kwame for his help as well, and all the parents who came out and supported us and donated. In April, you also were, we had a lot of support from you as well. So thank you to all those families for supporting us in that. Next week, we do have a fundraiser, Pierce Day at Chipotle. It's Tuesday, 9/28, 4 to 8 p.m. And 33% of a purchase you make saying, I'm a Pierce family, they will give to us as part of that fundraiser. And we have these Pierce Days on a monthly basis. Upcoming, I know Cecilia is on the call. We're discussing Parents' Night and what that looks like, to have new parents come in and meet and learn more about the school. And so we're talking about that. And we had talked about moving Move-a-thon to the fall because, we had seen numbers going down, but then it's just not going to happen because things aren't, it's just not conducive right now. But we have Harbor Night typically in the fall. We are going to move that to the spring as well. And we're also going to have a Pierce Spirit Gear shop up shortly. And we also have some potential events that are pretty exciting coming up soon. And we're going to come to LSC to make a couple of requests for fundraisers on school grounds, but also, as Lori had mentioned earlier, work with the real estate as well to get those approved. So those are a couple of things there. And then we're also looking at having a paid position, a stipend or what have you, for Spanish translation services. That would not only be translating our documentation, so we have English and Spanish, but also attending our meetings. As we do more and more outreach to the school community, we want to make sure that we can accommodate everybody in the meetings. And currently, I want to mention to anybody who's not been involved, we do have 2 board positions open. And we're looking for people to participate in our committees as well if the board doesn't work for you. And you can reach out to me at chad@friendsofpierce.org for any more information you'd like. So I want to thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Chad. And so you mentioned coming to the LSC. Chad emailed me yesterday about one of the fundraisers that they have in mind is a Fall Fest that they are requesting happen on school grounds. And Principal Zamy let him know that any fundraiser that happens on school grounds has to be approved by the LSC. I have started reaching out to Luis with the Office of LSC Relations to get guidance on how exactly we go about that. He asked me about this yesterday, which would not have been in time to have so the agenda went up on Tuesday. Yesterday would not have been enough time to update the agenda to add a vote. So depending on how the planning goes and depending on the guidance that we have get from the Office of LSE Relations, and depending on what their calendar looks like before the 21st, I might be calling a special meeting to be able to approve the fundraising for FOP and for the LSE to discuss it. And that's just a heads up for LSE members so that we can support FOP. And it's a fall fest with pumpkins, I think, is what I heard being discussed, which would be a good community building endeavor on top of everything else. Any questions for Chad? Any other discussion for FOP? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to PSO, and Cecilia is already unmuted.
I'm not sure if there are any new parents here, but are new to the school. Cecilia Bocanegra, head of the PSO, which stands for Peer Service Organization. Our parent group handles a lot of the community building events and teacher appreciation, events like, Halloween dance or Valentine's Day dance. We're hosting a parent mixer coming up, just stuff to bring families together at the school and get to know each other and, help out teachers and staff and admin. So we've got our first meeting tomorrow. We haven't met since March of 2020 at all, not virtually, not in person, but we're resuming our meetings, a monthly meeting starting tomorrow morning after drop off at 8:15. The folks at Edgewater Baptist Church have been kind enough to allow us to use the space in their basement. It's on the corner of Hollywood and Glenwood. So it's just, half a block walk. Should be easy for folks to make. Masks required, but yeah, so we're going to meet there tomorrow and talk about stuff that we're planning for this month and into next month. The first thing that we're trying to do to hit the ground running is recruit room reps. Jill and April have posted information on our social media outlets. April's working on getting teachers to send information about that out to their classroom lists, since we don't have those up and running for room reps yet. But information will be shared for folks who are interested and want to learn more about what that is, and if they want to do it, how to get involved. We are planning our parent mixer. It will be coming up hopefully between now and mid-October on a Wednesday at Cheska's Margarita Bar and Grill on Clark. We hosted there a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, and it was really nice. There's outdoor space on their patio. There'll be appetizers, drinks. It should be a good time. And usually we invite parent group leaders to come or send a representative to come and give a spiel, let parents who are new to the community know about their group, how to get involved, that kind of thing. So that should be fun. And we'll also be talking about a Halloween celebration. We obviously can't do a dance, but our Vice President, Ashley Hines Elwood, is interested in trying to arrange a celebration outside on the turf. Not sure if it could happen in conjunction with FOP's, Halloween festival or fall festival plan maybe, but anyway, just to have something for the kids to do outside. So we'll be kicking around ideas for that tomorrow and just seeing who's interested in helping out. That's kind of it for what's on our agenda tomorrow. Then we'll meet again on Friday, October 8th, again at 8:15 in the morning. And we'll post our minutes on the school website too, so folks who can't make it can go over there and read up and see what's going on and let us know if they want to help out or learn more about something. Any questions? Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Cecilia. Chris Over was in the meeting for rep, but she had to leave. She emailed me her report. So
I have it also, Javi.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah, I'm stepping in. Chris had to run, and I see it looks like there's a few other steering committee members in the chat, but I'm here to give the report from REP. We've been talking a lot about the structure and what kind of activities we'd like to help support this year. Pierce's Racial Equity Parent Group, or REP, is a parent-led volunteer organization that aims to be, I guess I should say, I'm Sean Andrews. I have 2 kids at the school. My daughter's in 2nd grade and my son's in 6th. So just as an intro, sorry. We're aiming to be racially inclusive and collaborative, responsive to community interests and concerns, and intentionally focused on equity and inclusion. We envision a broad sense of belonging and a Pierce community that meets the needs of all its students and families. In the 2021-2022 academic year, REP wants to support action committees aimed at creating positive change. And in many ways, this is building off of the model that sort of developed organically last year. People would come to us and say they wanted to do a book talk or talk about a podcast or take some sort of action, and we would just sort of help them organize it and facilitate it. And so this is kind of just broadening that and maybe putting some categories that people could work in if they're interested in. First, an equity action committee, which will connect parents committed to building an anti-racist school community, including affinity spaces for parents of color and parents of students of color. An advocacy action committee will build relationships to amplify the voices of parents from underrepresented communities, especially families for whom English is not the primary language, with the goal of empowering parents to be able to respond and contribute to community issues. And last year when we were talking about this, we noted, at least in terms of home language, about 1/3 of the school is Spanish speaking. So I applaud you for waiting for a translator tonight. I know that put some time at the beginning of the meeting, but an education action committee will host film screenings, book discussions, and community conversations to talk about and learn to recognize how race and racism show up in our communities. And there's a survey that we posted in REP and we'll post it on Parents of Pierce. And I think it'll be in Principal Zamie's newsletter asking just sort of what some of the interests people might have in terms of programming there for the book club. A communication action committee will focus on developing multiple pathways of communication to help broaden access to information and participation in community conversations. So if racial equity is important to you, then join us. If you want to add your voice but aren't sure where it fits, join us. No matter where you are on the path towards racial literacy, please join us. The email is repierce, so there's 2 P's there, at gmail.com, or connect us on our website at racialequityparents.org, or you can find us on Facebook. So happy to answer any questions or clarifications. Thank you for the time. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Does anyone have any questions for Sean? I have one question, Sean. Is Rep planning on having a meeting anytime soon?
Oh, yeah, I guess that should have been in the report. Sorry. We're planning right now. We're planning on October 7th, but we're just kind of getting everything together. I believe we will plan on having it be a virtual meeting, okay. And there will be some details coming soon about the first organizational meeting. And we just sort of wanted to get this out there before the organizational meeting. We'll mostly be talking about what these committees. So that would be a good place to come in and talk to us as well. So there'll be communications coming out of the newsletter and on the Facebook groups about the first meeting.
Will that communication be coming from the new Communication Action Committee?
I think that you can't put the cart before the horse, but maybe I'm not sure. I think we're actually constituting the Communication Committee. Okay. So no, it will just come from one of us on the steering committee.
Okay, I was just joking.
Yeah, well, I was, and that's why I was trying with the cart and the horse, but I don't think it. I can't tell if it landed. You know, we're on Zoom.
I would have done chicken or the egg, but that
Okay,
Greg is
felt
left.
like we were in motion, so I wanted to kind
Yeah.
of feel like there's yeah.
We're approaching
But yeah.
the fourth hour, so I'm glad that we
All right.
made Greg laugh on this meeting at least.
All right. Well, thank you.
Any other questions for Sean? Seeing none, moving on to the next item on the agenda, public participation. It is 8:54. We said that we would go for 10 minutes. Do we want to consider extending that now, or do we want to wait to see if the 10 minutes are exhausted? We didn't really leave it open. We didn't discuss when we updated the bylaws what that would look like.
So I want to make sure that voices are heard, but it's also 8:54 p.m. And we're pushing our third hour of our meeting. So I would also like to be respectful of everybody's time.
Completely fair. Okay, not seeing. So we have 3 people currently stacked, and at this time, we are not seeing any motivation to extending it past the 10 minutes. So at 8:55, we will go for public participation for 10 minutes. First person on stack is Robin.
Thank you. Good evening. Brief comments and a question for Principal Zamy. First, I would like to thank the school administration, teachers, staff, and school community who made another unprecedented school year run very smoothly. I'm sure it was an incredible effort, and sincere thanks from a parent perspective. Secondly, I would like to offer a recommendation around the long statement that's made at the start of the meeting by the LSC chair, and suggest that it be maintained in the agenda for those who may miss it due to timing or the need to refer back to it for written reference if joining after, as it's read, and perhaps read and review it for consistency with the revised chat limitations. A quick also a comment on the community rep vacancy. In the past, prior LSC practices have announced those vacancies via Alder Ward newsletters in the 48th ward, 40th ward, and probably in the 46th as well. And so I would offer that as a inclusivity practice to widen the possible audience and invitation of candidates to a wider scope beyond due diligence. And then finally, final comment before the question for Principal Zamy, I would invite the LSC chair to not apply a time limit on the principal's report, as it is a core component, in terms of both the LSC responsibilities and parent interests, as it relates to school safety, student support, and student success. And then the question for Principal Zamy is, I was wondering about the STAR 360 assessment, and if there's any analysis that is done or in progress relative to how the outcomes and results of that compared to the NWEA. And for example, like if a student had tested at a certain kind of competency at the last time the NWA was done, probably 2 years ago, and if their assessment suggests a kind of a vast difference in, let's say, like math, for example, is there anything that, if we're seeing consistency as far as like where students were and where they're at now preliminarily? Thank you.
Yeah. So for STAR 360, we are very close to finishing the first cycle of testing. There were a handful of makeups that we needed to complete. We did have teachers begin looking at reports this week during our grade level meetings. We have not yet completed a 3rd through 8th grade analysis. What I will say is that the STAR 360 is more in alignment with the IAR, the Illinois Assessment of Readiness, although there are aspects of the STAR 360 assessment that also align to MAP. And so one of the things that that we were thinking is to have an information session for families once we became a little bit more familiar with the assessment, so that we could help sort of share back to the community what they should expect to see in terms of reports coming home, how we are using the data, and then an analysis of what we're seeing. We're not yet at that point because we just started implementing. We're still in the learning phase, but that is what we would like to do over the next, I'd say 3 to 6 months, as we become more familiar and have that data that we can share back, because the students will take the assessment 3 times a year, beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of year.
Okay, thank you. Next person on stack is Jerry.
Hi, I'm gonna just read an email that was sent by a parent to be read during public participation. My name is Jerry Baumgart. I'm the teacher rep, but this email is on behalf of Mr. Spectia, who is a parent of twin girls at our school. During the 6/15/21 meeting for the Pierce LLC, I followed the verbal instructions from the LLC around public participation. For example, to have the public type stack into the chat to have access to public participation. Yet when I requested to participate a second time by typing stack after someone else was allowed to speak, the LLC deliberated about whether or not I could participate. One of the LLC members, Javier C. Wright, a parent rep, indicated the time for public participation ended, but the chair, Aisha Noble, did not indicate the end of public participation. It was highly divergent from past practice for the LLC to deliberate for over 5 minutes on allowing public participation for a specific individual when the individual followed the meeting protocol shared by the LLC for public participation. When they finally allowed me to speak, a Pierce parent to speak, Bill Kennedy, a parent rep, told the LLC to cut me off 24 seconds into my remark and silenced me, muted my audio from continuing my public participation. No norms were addressed as the reason for cutting me off and silencing me. For an LLC that has put anti-bias and equity as one of their priorities to the extent of hiring an outside vendor for anti-bias consulting, I am disappointed that as a Latino parent and person of color, having a white man silence me and then an LLC member of color agreeing or bystanding. My public participation comment was actually going to be a question about the new preschool edition, but after hearing the LLC deliberate and move the goalposts of when to allow public participation, I wanted to share my thoughts on it. Regardless of race, we are all parents and want the best for our children, but I am concerned with several members' bias and find that disappointing. Best, John Aspectia.
Thank you, Jerry. I'm just going to respond very quickly, trying to respect the amount of time in public participation.
Interrupt for 1 second. 2 questions, Mr. Seawright. Are we supposed to be responding in public participation? And the other question is, I don't even know if he's on the call, so I just want to let you know that.
Oh, I'm happy to respond to him. Well, yes, the bylaws that we passed said that it was at the discretion of LLC members whether or not to comment. For the previous public participation, Principal Zamy responded to the public comments that people
I
had.
just wanted to make sure we were within the bylaws.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you clarifying that. So to be clear, what happened was that Mr. Speitia, I really don't want to take up more time, but Mr. Speitia got an opportunity to speak once, and he was asking for an opportunity to speak again. We did discuss it. We decided to allow him to speak, and he immediately started to violate our norms by naming another parent, and that parent was a Black parent. So for him to call me out for being a Latinx man, and when Bill was defending a Black parent, I think is disingenuous on his part. Next person on stack is Bill.
Jerry, can you forward that email to me so I can put it in the record? Thanks. I'm reading an email on behalf of parent Kathleen Hayes that was submitted by email. It'll also be in the notes. Good evening. My name is Kathleen Hayes, and my son Henry is in 6th grade at Pierce. We joined the Pierce community just this school year and could not be more pleased with our experience. As a parent of an under 12 child who is not yet eligible for the COVID vaccine, I was sick to my stomach with worry about the prospect of sending him back into school building this year after keeping him home since March 2020 and limiting his exposure to indoor public spaces. However, I've been comforted by Principal Zamie's solutions-oriented and collaborative approach with a group of parents who proposed outdoor lunch. The fact that all Pierce students have this option has quelled my deep concerns about sending my child back into a school building this year. I feel that he is being kept as safe as possible indoors as well, and I am grateful to his teachers and all Pierce staff and the administration for the COVID safety measures you are working so diligently to maintain. I'm aware that Principal Zamie is similarly receptive to implementing an inclement weather outdoor lunch plan, tents, and space heaters, for example. This is somewhat large but important undertaking that will take a lot of hands on deck to make happen, but I believe it's a common sense measure to help continue keeping all Pierce students healthy and safe. Pending CPS's approval of such a plan, I urge the LSC to approve any expenditure proposed by Friends of Pierce to cover the cost of making the plan feasible. I also wonder if LSCs at schools who are eager to implement similar plans but are waiting for CPS approval can band together and loop in our respective aldermen to communicate to CPS the sense of urgency around continued outdoor lunch. Thank you.
The last person on stack is Ashley.
Hello. I just wanted to, I have two quick things. The first one is back to PAC. Well, when we were, the council was discussing PAC. I have concerns that continuing to push this out is doing a disservice to parents. When we had met as the head of parents, the parent collab meeting, we had started talking about this in early August. And my concern is that, you know, we want to really hit the ground running and give parents as much support as possible, especially after everything that's went on. And I have some concerns that continuing putting this out into public participation, and I understand why we really do want to get all voices involved, is that, you know, we're continuing pushing back the support that PAC can give parents. And so I just want to put it out there that I hope that there could be more urgency in getting this developed from the LSC. I know that PSO, we're pretty set on handling the parent involvement side. So I just wanted to say, like, I wasn't really clear what was going to happen as far as LSC's portion of that. Listening to the meeting, I really wasn't sure what the next step was. And then my second thing is that
I'm sorry, Ashley, I'm just trying to capture your, I don't understand your comment. Could you clarify it a little more clearly, just so I can capture it?
As far as PAC, Javi was talking about PAC and how you guys, I really wasn't sure what your next steps are. Are you going to move forward with more parent participant, trying to engage more parent voices before you decide that you're going to take on that other half of PAC?
So I brought it up in an LSC meeting because I said that I would at the parent collab meetings. The other thing that I said at the parent collab meetings and I stressed over email was that we're all parent volunteers, and there's nothing that can compel us as parent volunteers to do anything else. My understanding was that PSO was going to move forward with the engagement and communication and engagement portion, and I have tried to stress as much as possible that the part that was left unsaid was the accountability, and I don't see that there is anything that prohibits PSO from moving forward with the portion of PAC's responsibilities that they've agreed to move forward with.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize if I've given you the impression that you need the LSC's permission to do anything. That was not my intention.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was my perception. So thank you so much for clearing that up. And then the second thing, I'm not sure if it's just because I hang out at the playground a lot, but I have an enormous amount of parents that are constantly asking me about the slide. And so I too would like an update on what's going to happen with the broken slide, if there is an update on the broken slide.
I can share. I mean, the part was ordered. The budget was approved from the district. We're literally just waiting for the slide to come in and actually get put out there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. That's all I have to say. Thank you, everyone.
Seeing no one else being slacked and having exceeded the 10 minutes for the second public participation, next item on the agenda is other business. Do we have any other business?
I have a question or comment or concern. I know I brought this up previously before, and this is not for lack of my engagement or support of peers, but over 3 hour meetings is really wearing on me as a local school council member. And I know we talked about before and everyone agrees, but I feel like we really need to take action as to how to make these meetings a bit shorter, because this is not something that I can keep up, and I'm sure a lot of other people feel the same way. So instead of us all agreeing, could we maybe have an action item to brainstorm ways or something to, I mean, I enjoy holding space with all of you, but it's too much for me.
Thank you, Jerry. I agree with you. I'm exhausted. I think, yeah, I don't want to belabor the point and extend the meeting. Do we want to, I just want to open it up. How do we discuss that? Like outside of an LSC meeting, 3 of us aren't allowed to be discussing these things.
I think that we can put this on the agenda for the next meeting, and everybody come up with some ideas. But you know, this is our first meeting. This is your first meeting chairing this, and I think once we find you find your groove, and I think that things probably run a bit more, smoothly. So
just to clarify, Javier, that I wasn't making that comment as a reflection of your leadership of this meeting. It's historically all of our LSC meetings are like upwards of 3 hours. So I mean, I'm sorry if that was the impression you got. It's been this way for a few years. So
I'm sorry if I came off defensive. I really wasn't coming off defensive. I think I did a terrible job, but a still pretty decent job of keeping the meeting moving forward. It's just a lot of content for us to move through, and even when we won't discuss it, it was a genuine question. It's like, I want to figure this out because this is a lot. And
I would like to put it on the agenda for next meeting, and I think that it's a good idea for us all to come with ideas so that moving forward after this meeting or the next meeting, that we're not having upwards of 3 hour meetings.
Yeah, I agree. And I've tried to solicit reports and try to share them out, hoping that would focus the meeting. But yes, it's too much. Thank you. Any other business?
I want to, on behalf of the teachers, thank the local school council and members of the parent community for the breakfast that was provided earlier this month. It was very well received and very well appreciated. So thank you to the parents and the local school council for providing that for us.
Thank you, Evan. Thank you to the PSO for helping us, helping support with that. And thank you to Matthew for doing all that legwork.
And I also just want to say, I think it's important that parents in the community thank their teachers. It's been a really, difficult and exhausting transition back to school. And we are seeing, especially in the primary grades, a lot of students in need, and the transition back to school has been difficult. Older kids have definitely adjusted a lot more, but please consider continuing to think and love on your teachers.
Thank you,
I
Principal
will get a
Zimmerman.
virtual hug to all the teachers. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Any other business? Seeing none, any announcements? Seeing none, any, can I get a motion to adjourn? Is there a sentiment for a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is that allowed? All right, so moved. Good night, everyone.